Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm not feeling great today, so I'm sorry if I sound a little off. But today we are creating shaped cards. Now, shaped cards are a fun way to create something that's a little different, especially different than what you would buy at a store, and a great way to stretch your supplies. I will be sharing several variations of creating a shaped card, and I have several card examples. So I'm hoping something here will inspire you and you'll have supplies that you can use to create them. All right, let's get started with this example first. Now, on several of my cards, I do a lot of die cutting. Later on, we'll do some stenciling and more, and even foiling. So a little bit of something for everyone. Here I have the Spellbinders 4-petal bloom reflection die set. This is a great detailed die set that allows you to layer and create pieces with lots of detail to them. Very easy to create with. So off screen, I did a bunch of die cutting, and today I'm going for bold colors on most of my cards. So I did some bold yellows and blues. Now, I like to assemble die cuts like this, so I am layering up lots of die cuts here. So I'm starting with this base piece, and I'm gluing 2 of them together, and then I'll glue the other colorful die cuts on top. You could definitely keep this simpler if you want to. Another fun way to do die cut cards like this is to cut everything from white and then color the different pieces with either inks, markers, or whatever. But I tend to go for scraps that I can use along with other pieces of cardstock. So here I used light blue, medium blue, and yellow scraps. And then I just used some darker blue cardstock for the bigger pieces. By the way, if you follow my Instagram, you probably see in my stories that I am often spending a lot of time gluing little die cuts together. I really enjoy that process. I'll do so in front of the TV. I'll do so while running errands. It's just something that keeps me busy and happy. If you're interested in the process that I go through to do a lot of die cutting in preparation for doing a lot of assembly of die cuts, I could do a video. Just let me know in the comments below. But really, I am just following the example on the Spellbinders website on how to arrange these die cuts, and I'm gluing them together so they're ready to put on a card. For this first shape card, I'm using the Spellbinders Essential 4-petal label dies. These are great for creating shaped cards, but also for creating frames or focal pieces on your cards. You can see there are lots of sizes there. The biggest one, I believe, is 4¼ by 5½ inches. But for this card, I'm using the second biggest and third biggest. The second biggest for the card itself. So I use that second biggest one and cut from a navy cardstock, as you see here, and I'm gluing 2 of my floral arrangements on it, one at the top and one at the bottom. You can see that these floral dies line up nicely with the petal dies. However, you could use them separately or together. I plan to use these label dies for other cards in the future because I like that it's something a little different than an oval or a rectangle. So once I have these glued in place, it's time to turn this into a shaped card. Right now, we just have a card front. For this first shaped card technique, we're doing partial die cutting. Don't worry, it's very easy. I'm taking a piece of cardstock and just scoring it in half. This is how I go about creating my top folding note cards. So I scored it in half at 5½ inches, and now I will cut that in half at 4¼ inches, and this gives me 2 note cards. I'll set one aside for later. And from one of these note cards, I'm using that same label die, so it's the second largest in the set. And I am taping it onto the front of my card so that the top edge of the label die is hanging off the score line just a little bit. So that's the folded line. And that cutting edge at the top is hanging off of it just a little bit. Then I'll run that through my die cut machine. And what this does is it cuts through the 2 layers, the folded layer, but not across that fold line at the top. So we end up with a shaped card. You could do this partial die cut method to create a shape card with any large die shape. Now onto the front of that folded card, I'm placing our little decorative card front, and there you have a shaped card. And it's about, I would say, 5 by 3¼ inches, maybe a little bit bigger. I then used a slightly smaller label die, the third largest in the set, to cut from white cardstock, and I'm gluing that to the inside. So I have a nice area there to write my personal message. I decided to leave this blank so that there's plenty of room to write something. For sentiment on the front of the card, I used the new Spellbinders Pocket Full of Spring Sentiment die set. This has a banner die, but then also several sentiments that you can cut inside of the banner that give you an engraved look for a sentiment. It's hard to describe, but basically it kind of looks like a faux stitched sentiment. You'll see here in a moment. Now you don't have to use the sentiment with the banner die, but you can see it cuts it out nicely. After adding that to the front of our card is complete. You can see this is a nice shaped card that stands up really well on display. We have that area on the inside to write our personal message, and lots of bold die cut color here. You can see here that engraved look that you get with that thank you die that I used. And I also added some gold glitter gems. These are from Pink Fresh Studio. I'll link to them below. And here you have a fun shaped card. Now I used a lot of die cutting, but do know Spellbinders has like some foil and stamp sets that go nicely with this shaped die, but really you could use anything with it. I have another example of creating kind of a shaped card using that same die set, just to show you a variation. In this case, you have a shaped flap on the front of a see-through card panel. So I'm counting this as a shaped card today, but it's another way to stretch your supplies. Let's start by first creating that foiled sentiment. I chose to do foil, but you could definitely stamp a greeting if you prefer. I'm using my Spellbinders Glimmer foil machine, and I have a new foil plate and coordinating die set from Spellbinders called Making Me Smile. I like this because it's one foil plate to do several sentiments, and then one die to cut them all out. You can see the different sentiments included there over on the left. I'll be using You're Pretty Amazing, but it makes it so much easier to foil them all at once and then die cut them all at once. So I'm taking pewter colored foil and I'm putting it between my smooth cardstock and my foil plate. The pretty side of the foil touches the pretty side of the plate. I then put that face down onto my Spellbinders Glimmer machine. It's warmed up. I press the timer button. When the button stops flashing, I'll take all of those plates out and run it through my Spellbinders die cut machine. So the Glimmer machine gives the heat, the die cut machine gives the pressure, and check out the beautiful foil results that we get. I then can use the die to cut them all out. And be sure to keep that negative foil because you can use that with the solid hot foil plate. I'll link to a video showing that up here at the top right. So here we can use that coordinating die. Makes it really quick to create a lot of sentiments. I'll use the one on this card and save the others for later. By the way, ignore that floral heart piece. We'll be using that later in this video. I did things out of order. All right, now for this card, I used the label dies that I used earlier, and I die cut a blue panel and assembled some flower die cuts on it. These flower die cuts are from the 4 Petal Thank You Floral dies, and you can see it coordinates nicely with the shape, but you could use it separately also. Nothing fancy here, I just die cut and assembled according to the example on their website. Now, once again, I'm creating a folded card base using that partial die cut method I showed you before. I thought I'd show it again. Notice I am making the top edge of the die hang off the folded edge of my note card. So this is a top folding note card. I'll run it through my die cut machine. That will die cut through both layers, but we'll be left with that folded edge at the top. So this folded card will actually go on the front of a panel, which you'll see in a moment. First, I'm gluing our flower card front onto this. So this is very much like we did on our last card. So you could leave this as is, as a little shaped card. But I'm changing it up and doing a shaped flap on the front of a piece that has those little holes in it. This is a really cool die from Spellbinders that coordinates nicely with these other products, but can be used separately. It's the scrolled punch and pierce die. Now this cuts 3 pieces. You have the outside frame, the inside frame, and then a small piece at the center. These can be used together or separately, and there's lots of pierce detail on these. They're just gorgeous. I plan to use this in a future video, but for now, I am using the outside frame die cut. I created 2 of those from white cardstock, and I'm gluing them together back to back. This is just going to be a panel behind our shaped card so that it just has this fun see-through frame around the card itself. So I'm putting strong adhesive around the outside back of our little shaped card, and I'll glue that on the front of that white piece. You'll see that it overlaps a little bit with that center opening, so I'm able to glue it in place. And then I did create another white die cut of the same size that I'm gluing to the back, just to give it a nice finished look from the back side, and also to give me a place to write my hand stamped by Jennifer message. I also cut a label die that's slightly smaller than our little blue note card here, and I'm gluing that to the inside of the blue piece to give me a nice place to write my personal message. So this isn't a shaped card, but it's a shaped card front, and then you have that fun see-through panel behind it. This could be done with a small rectangle card glued to a pierced background die cut. You don't have to do a shape on the front, but it really does add a lot of fun to it. And there you can see how you can see through those little holes on that white die cut panel. I did add some little dewdrops to the center of our flowers. Those are from Trinity stamps, and I will link to those below. And we have our little foiled You're Pretty Amazing sentiment on top. By the way, I have a bandage on my thumb because I burn myself cooking, so I highly recommend you don't cook and instead just do card making. Just a little tip for you. All right, now let's go on to our next example. This is another shape card, and we're going to assemble it a little bit different than we did on the previous two. This time I'm using the Spellbinders Floral Reflection Label die set. So this has a similar feel to the last one, just a little more decorative, and it would work great on the front of a card too. Along with this, I am using the Spellbinders Floral Reflection dies. These allow you to create kind of a half circle of a floral arrangement, and you'll just create 2 per card, and look how nicely it fits on to the shaped dies. So I arranged this off screen. I just used different purples and pink papers that I found in my scrap drawer, and that will be our card front. I cut another of these label dies from the same color of cardstock, and I'm putting it into my scoreboard. And I'm doing a score line about a 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch from the top point of the shape. And I'm going to fold back and forth along that, creating a little hinge. I then will take this white label die cut, which is slightly smaller, using that die set, and that will be where I'll place my personal message. I'm holding that white die cut onto the die cut with the hinge, and then I'll do a little pencil mark where the hinge is. I'm then cutting the white label die cut right at that pencil mark. That's so this little top part is out of the way and the hinge will be able to move freely. I'll glue this right onto that purple die cut just below that hinge line. Now we'll put some strong adhesive above the hinge line. I recommend a strong liquid adhesive like Gina K Connect. That's what I have here in my fine tip bottle, or a really strong double-sided tape. You want this to be secure. I put adhesive above that fold line, and now I'm placing the decorative card front onto it, pinching there at the top to make sure that it really secures there. That's what holds our card together. Next, we need a sentiment for the front of this, and I'm using a new Spellbinders die set called Everyday Sentiments. This has lots of really great basic words and the shadow dies in a very classic font that would work with a lot of styles of cards. So there's thanks, hugs, thank you, love, happy birthday, thinking of you, and hugs. I think I got them all. I used hello on this one, and I'll use these again later in this video. Now with this card, there are 2 points at the bottom. The point at the bottom of the front of the card and the back of the card. And that keeps it from standing up nicely. So here's a little trick. On the back of the card, cut that little point off the bottom. Then it gives it a flat place to land, and so you can have it stand up nicely on display. This works great with heart-shaped cards also. So there you can see how it stands up nicely. So this fits nicely into an A2 envelope. And I have plenty of room to write a personal message on the inside. I could even stamp or add die cuts there if I want. Here's a closer look at the layered die cuts on the front. I did add some Pink Fresh Studio glitter drops to the center of some of the flowers for a bit of sparkle. So I love die cut cards that have lots of die cutting on it like this, but you could definitely do this with stamping, foiling, stenciling, or more, and I'll share more of those examples in a moment. I mentioned earlier that I'm not feeling good. I feel a cold coming on. So I just took my die cut machine along with some of these dies and scrap papers, and I just die cut and assembled some of these at the kitchen table while I took it easy. So you can see I really like doing these types of layered die cuts, and I have these all ready to do additional cards. Okay, let's do a heart-shaped card. This is one of my favorite type of cards, of shape cards to do. Been making heart cards for many years. There are a lot of great heart dies out there. You could definitely do this with a circle or an oval too if you prefer. Now the die set that I'm using is the Spellbinders Blooming Heart die set. It actually comes with this heart that I used for the shaped card and the floral dies that fit in nicely. You could use any heart die for this though. You can see it is a good size heart. It's almost 4¼ inches tall, perfect to make a card. Now off screen, I did a bunch of die cutting and assembling, again, just following the examples on the Spellbinders website. And you end up with these 2 floral pieces with lots of flowers on them. I did do 2 different shades of green cardstock and offset them. So you'll notice later that it's a lighter green on top with a little bit of darker green peeking out the side. Now these pieces are being glued onto a heart that I cut from craft cardstock, and it's a little bit lighter weight cardstock. I want the front of my card to be strong, so I die cut a second heart, and I'm just gluing them together so that our card front is strong. I then have a white heart die cut. This will be the back of our card. And I'm doing a score line right along the side. You could do the score line anywhere. You could do it across the top if you prefer. But I thought the side fold would be fun for this heart-shaped card because it'll kind of tilt to the side when you stand it up. If you wanted to stand straight up and down, just assemble the card like I did on the last example. All right, so now we'll just make sure that's glued nicely on the side, and there we have our shaped card. Now for a sentiment on this, I used the thanks layering die cut again. I used white cardstock for the word thanks and vellum for the shadow behind it. And then I'm also adding some little yellow flowers that I had left over from our last card. So don't be afraid to mix and match different sets together. So here's the completed card. It's almost 4¼ inches tall. And when you stand it up, it kind of sits on its side, which I think is really fun because it kind of wobbles a little bit, something unexpected, and looks really fun on display. If you want it to stand upright, definitely assemble it like I did the last card. Here's a closer look at the die cutting on the front of the card. You can see how I did a lighter green die cut and a darker green die cut and glued them together slightly offset so some of the darker green would peek around the edge. It just adds to that fun layered look. So this example shows you can even make a shaped card with curved edges. Okay, our next card example isn't layered die cutting. Instead, we're doing layered stenciling, and we'll create a really unique shaped card. This can be done with any of your large dies that either cut out stenciled or stamped images. All right, so here I have from Concord and Ninth the Sending Hugs bundle. You can buy these separately or together. There's the dies that you see here, lots of fun heart dies there. There's a small stamp set with some greetings, and then there is the layering stencil set. I'll be using all of these together today. I'm a big fan of these layering stencils. You could even create a simple 1-layer card with them. I have my Waffle flower stencil mat, and in the corner of that I'm putting a piece of white cardstock and also the first of the layering stencil, and I've taped it in place. Over this layering stencil I'm doing a very light amount of ink, and I'm using 3 colors of ink: pink, yellow, and blue. You could use any type of ink for this, and I'm making sure that I overlap these inks. So I have the pink first and then the yellow, and I'm making sure I overlap, which creates an area of orange. Then I'll do blue along the bottom and make sure that overlaps with some of the yellow, creating an area of green. So this is a very light-handed amount of ink, and that's the first layer of the stencil. Now I'm using the exact same inks, and I'm doing a heavier hand, doing about a medium application of this. I chose to use Hero Art's core inks for this just because I like the colors, but you definitely could use whatever inks you may have. So again, I'm overlapping the colors a bit, and you can see how it quickly creates a rainbow. Now for the third layering stencil, I'm coming in with a very heavy hand of ink. You could switch to a darker ink pad if you wanted to, but I'm using the same 3 ink pads for all 3 layers. I did light hand over the first, medium over the second, and heavy over the third. And look at that fun rainbow look. Now the 4th stencil for this creates a shadow for these layers, so I thought I would use a gray ink. My favorite gray ink is from Hero Arts. It's the granite color. It's a medium gray, so I'm going on very light-handed just so it's a soft gray shadow around our fun letters. All right, so now we have the coordinating die to cut this out. If you wanted to, you could have done the stenciling right on the front of a note card and have a fun, colorful 1-layer card, but we're going to make that shaped card. I also die cut a banner, which is from this same die set, and stamped a greeting on it from the coordinating stamp set. I'm gluing the banner flat. I folded the edges and glued it flat, and then I will glue it right below the word hugs. This will also help to force, the card to stand up a little more straight because it'll use this as a foot also. So you have the bottom of the H in hugs and the bottom of this banner that will help it stand up nicely. I die cut another of that same die, and I'm doing a score line kind of at an angle up at the top. You could do this straight across if you want to, but I thought an angle would be fun. And this will be the hinge that will turn this into a shaped card. Above that score line, I'll put some very strong adhesive. Liquid or double-sided tape would be best. And I'll place these 2 pieces together and make sure that that glue dries nice and secure. Now we have a fun shaped card. Now this shaped card is definitely my favorite because it's so unexpected, very different than anything you would get in a store, and it looks really fun on display, something I think the recipient would really like, a great keepsake. I did add 3 die-cut holographic hearts using the Big Hugs dies from Concord and Ninth to create those. I didn't add any other embellishments. I really liked the soft inking of the Big Hugs and the shape of the card, and I wanted to keep that the focus. So this technique would work great with any large stamp or stenciled image that you may have that you have a large coordinating die for. So maybe you have a large floral image that you could stamp and color and then use the die to cut out and create a shaped card. All right, now for our final card. This one is really fun and very simple, believe it or not. This again is great if you have a large image and coordinating die. I'll be doing some foiling using the Spellbinders Wonderful Tulips foil plate, and there's also a layering stencil set that is available to coordinate with it. I will be using both today, but you definitely could do this with any large stamped image you may have. I just happen to love foiling. So I'm taking the tulip foil plate and I am taping it on to a piece of smooth white cardstock, and underneath it I will slide my favorite hot foil, which is the Aura. It's like a holographic gold. Every time you do foiling, make sure the pretty side of your foil touches the pretty side of your plate. And I'll put the plate down onto the foil and trim off some of that excess, which I do save because it works great with foiled sentiments. Now I will place that onto the warmed up Glimmer machine, put the plates on top, press the timer button, and then take all of those plates out of the Glimmer machine once the light stops flashing and run them through my die cut machine. Please know there are many ways you can do foiling using this machine. This is what I found works best for me. All right, so now we have this beautiful, beautiful foiling. Next, I'm using the coordinating stencils to add color. You could definitely use markers here or watercolor if you wanted to, but these stencils make it super fast. Now I'm taping the first one on, and you'll notice that there are these 4 circles or openings on the corners of the stencil. What you do is you trace into those holes, and it'll help you line up each of the stencils just right. I did put a piece of Post-it note up there to mask off a little decorative area they have in the stencil that you can use for something else. I won't be using that for today. Now, after I've done the first one, I can line up the next stencil, lining up those little circles in the corners. Super easy to do. Over the first few stencils, I'll be doing different shades of green ink. You could get creative with shading on this. I just did basic, quick application of color. I then used different shades of kind of a soft red or peach color for the tulips themselves. I really hope that more companies do this, where you have those little marks that help you to line up stencils quickly. It really takes the guesswork out and saves quite a bit of time. Okay, so once I did different colors over all of the stencils, here we have our beautiful inking with the fun gold foil outline. Now I'll take the coordinating die and line it up with the image and then run it through my die cut machine. This will create the front panel of our card. We'll do the shaped portion of the card in a moment. Now here I'll take this die and put it up against the edge of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch side folding card. So see, I'll tape it right up against the edge and then run it through our die cut machine. If your image has just a large regular die that goes all the way around, just allow it to hang off the left side and the bottom a bit. And that will give you this kind of fun shaped card. I'll glue the front of my panel onto the front of the shaped card and trim off any of the excess. And now we have a really unique card design that works great with any large image. This one especially was fun. So it is smaller than a normal card, but when you open it up, there's plenty of room to write something special on the inside. And because it's much smaller than our envelope, I can glue a sentiment so it hangs off the side. I used the thanks die that I used before, used white for the shadow and black for the word itself, just so it would stand out against the bold card. This stands up very nicely on display. Plenty of room to write a message on the inside, and definitely something fun and expected, perfect for display. All right, there you have some fun ways to create shaped cards. I'm hoping that you can try 1 or 2 of these ideas using supplies you have. If you're interested in the products that I use today, I do have them linked below in my YouTube description. At the end here, I'll link to a couple other shaped card videos and have a link to my blog where you can bookmark and save cards for future reference. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon and have a good day.